Hi friends! Today we have an interesting and most importantly practical video with real actionable advice. We are going to talk about how to properly dominate a woman in a relationship, and I'll give you a specific practical tool you can apply literally today or tomorrow. I've noticed that men often struggle to push their decisions through in a relationship. And even when they do manage it, there are always negative consequences. Later, the man can turn into a tyrant, and she might start holding grudges inside, then throw them back at him later. In short, men make mistakes. Let's break this down with an example. We'll take a classic story. I've seen plenty of this in my consultations. They meet, there is a mutual attraction, everything is great, they spend time together, the woman shows care and interest, and the man responds in kind. But there is something in her lifestyle, hobbies, interests, or circle of friends that bothers the man. Let's take the most common case. She's closer to some colleagues than she should be. So in other words, it bothers him somehow. Maybe she has male friends. Let's assume that. This could be something else too, but we'll use this as the example. So, there are two ways a man might act. I'll say right away both of them are wrong. Option 1. He thinks, well, everything is fine for now. There is mutual attraction, the girl is pleasant to be around, nothing really feels wrong at the moment. Why think about anything negative or bad? Today everything is wonderful. So the man just ignores the fact that there is a problem. It's more of a delayed problem and keeps dating her. He doesn't feel any strong possessiveness right now. But then a month passes, or 6 months, or a year. If the relationship continues, believe me, you will feel discomfort. You'll be bothered, angry, or jealous. And if you entered the relationship under those conditions, and only after some time you bring it up as a complaint, for example, you see her texting him, smiling at her phone, and in that moment you start having the talk, that always breaks the balance, always. And expecting her to say, oh, you don't like it, I just didn't know. Don't even count on that, it won't happen. She'll see it as you agreed to these terms in the beginning, you knew this was happening, and now suddenly you want to change the rules. It comes off an inconsistent. That turns it into a conflict in which she feels absolutely convinced she's in the right, and only you, and only if your importance to her is extremely high, will she even consider giving up that communication. But even that, it still won't really work. Now the second option. If from the very beginning you realize that bothers you, and you tell her right away, from this moment you no longer interact with these people, you have a man now, so this shouldn't happen anymore. In other words, you are trying to push your decision in their relationship. So, what am I trying to say in this video? Pushing any decision in a relationship is like taking out a loan. There are always consequences. Whenever a decision is pushed in a relationship, the woman develops a feeling of some resentment. She has her own opinion on the situation, but temporarily, under the influence of emotions, your opinion and your value to her, she'll do what you said. But over time, in any convenient or inconvenient situation, usually at the worst possible moment, she'll bring it up as a complaint. You are limiting me, you kept me at home, you took away my social circle, you are suffocating me, and so on. I think this is a situation painfully familiar to many. So, this is never really a solution. And what can I suggest instead? Here, a much smarter approach is needed, although I wouldn't even call it trickery. So, you see, when you are dealing with a woman who simply has feelings for you and is interested in you, she may agree to conditions she can't actually meet. When she does that, she isn't lying to deceive you. She is lying to herself. She is deceiving herself. And we can handle it in the following way. Look, you've spent a few dates with a woman in these circumstances. You realize there is something that bothers you. At first, you can just mention it, simply acknowledge it. For example, you could say, you can't imagine being in a serious, long-term relationship with a woman who has very close interactions with other men, and that you are skeptical about certain friendship. But your words shouldn't carry any negativity. She shouldn't feel that this bothers you too much, because if she notices that it really worries you, she'll know you're already attached. So you just mention it casually. She hears. Nothing more, nothing less. Then you continue seeing her if you enjoy her company, and at some point, whenever it feels right, maybe when something actually starts to bother you, you address it more seriously. So it's important that by this moment you feel it. Don't ignore your own feelings. You simply say, so listen, Vicky, I really enjoy spending time with you and seeing you, but I can't imagine being in a serious relationship under these conditions. We can maintain some connection, but I don't think pursuing a long-term relationship makes sense. You need a man with different views on life, a different approach to relationships, but that's not me. So you can say this in person or send it as a message. By the way, this approach is also appropriate when she brings up serious future prospects. So at that moment, it's either of you is unexperienced, it might seem like she'll run away right after hearing that this isn't going to happen. Like she'll quickly take off. That's not true. That's not true. So, of course, there is a kind of negotiation happening here. She might almost immediately say something like, you are being too strict, or you are taking this too seriously. In that case, you need to stay firm and say, no, listen, I know what I'm talking about. She might also say, I really value our time together, I can put this aside and you won't notice. Or she might initially act agreeable and say something like, it's a shame, I really enjoyed seeing you and spending time with you. I understand we have different views on life, and I hope you find the girl you're looking for. She could write this, of course, but that doesn't mean she truly believes it. It certainly doesn't mean she'd actually be happy that you found someone else. No. Right now, the fact that you've created some distance definitely matters to her. She's watching your reaction even 10 minutes later. At this moment, it's important not to dramatize or act like everything is terrible. Absolutely not. Up until now, your meetings have been positive. You haven't burdened her with problems, and you shouldn't start now. I've seen many people make this mistake. Almost always, within 10 minutes, a day or 3 days, she'll reach out, assuming everything else has been handled gracefully. When she does, she's effectively agreeing to the new boundaries. But if you think that's enough, you're mistaken. It's not. Even if she says, okay, let's continue, I still have feelings for you, you must respond, no, that's not an option. You can frame it positively. So, I would love to continue seeing you, I really enjoy spending time with you, but I understand that today you need to step back from this connection, and at some point in the future you might want it again, or you might see a problem with the fact that I insisted on setting this boundary. So basically, you're addressing her potential future complaint right away, and she's required to convince you that under no circumstances will it ever happen. If you do this, it becomes very hard for her to blame you for anything later. And doing what I just described is actually very simple. You just need to try it. Of course, if the fear of losing her outweighs your own comfort, if you are ready to sacrifice yourself for her or for the relationship, that's a problem. In that case, you probably won't be able to pull off this approach. This will only work when you are convinced that the situation is truly unacceptable for you, when you foresee and act accordingly. Always try to be proactive and think one step ahead. This simple tactic I just described can give you huge dividends. For example, we are talking here about dealing with a problematic woman in a relationship, right? And we know that the phase of leadership struggle is almost inevitable at the start. By doing so, you're already setting up the situation in advance, establishing the roles. So later on, she's much less likely to start rebellions and conflicts. Of course, with a problematic person, relapses are inevitable. It will happen eventually. But here is the ace up your sleeve. She's already convinced you that certain behavior is unacceptable. So even if she veers a little to the left or right, you have the option to be disappointed in her or distance yourself. You can't fool yourself into thinking it's wrong on your part. No. This is exactly what she agreed to from the beginning. For this reason, she'll likely reconcile quickly. Her emotions flare up again, she feels drawn to you again, and this cycle can last for a long time. A simple action like this can make even several years with a problematic woman reasonably comfortable. I'm not saying I recommend it, but that's up to each person. I want to emphasize again what I just shared is a recipe. One of the ways to put a problematic woman in a weaker position on terms that are comfortable for you. this approach works in any situation, because when a woman has a certain level of problematic traits, which is the case most of the time, there will always be aspects of her lifestyle that cause you discomfort. Here is the mistake most men make, and where the approach differs. Most men rely on her promises and then get disappointed when she doesn't keep them. And from that disappointment comes all the negativity toward women and everything else. But if you understand her nature, you can use it to your advantage. You recognize in advance that she won't follow through on a promise, even if she gives it. Sometimes men don't even need a promise, they just believe in the best outcome. That usually ends badly. Here, we understand that she will be inconsistent. She's a hostage, a slave to her emotions, feelings, and desires. And that's exactly why the early meetings are positive, because those first interactions emotionally engage her. So, through this kind of strategy, you actually gain all the possibilities. Something like that, friends. So, thank you so much for watching.